Thank you.
Reporting from Jiuquan Launch Center, and we're now seeing this live picture from inside the cabin where the three astronauts is.
They're exactly where they were.
I think they're taking,
2 hours
taking
ago.
a rest. I think they were
This
taking a
video
rest.
is come from the camera mounted inside the re-entry capsule. So we can see in the middle is Mr. Chen Dong, the commander, and on the far side is Ms. Liu Yang, 02, and also on the who is close to us is Mr. Cai Xuzhe. So you can see that still they are reading their manuals, their handbook. So because you know that they not only must be very familiar with the normal procedure, but also in emergency cases, what button they should press and what operations they should be done. They must be very familiar with that. So that is the reason why they always reading that manual book.
And also, memorize it all, don't
yes.
you?
You know, I'm a little curious about this. Can they take a nap during the whole flight?
They'll be blacking out, won't they?
They'll be
Would there be
blacking
a forced nap?
We're taking a rest.
Will they have that?
Not during normal launch. I mean, they may or may not black out if there is an emergency escape. But I don't think it's only 6.5 hours. So
20 minutes countdown.
Wide awake. Yeah.
So after they come into orbit, they can take off their IVA spacesuits and go into the orbital module. You know that we have heating device in the orbital module, so they can eat hot food. Because you know that during the Shenzhou-14 mission, we only prepared some moon cakes, a very smaller one, very small moon cakes for Mr. Yang Liwei. So it's cold food. But for the Shenzhou-6 mission, we already have some heating device in the orbital module, so they can have very delicious food from the Shenzhou-6 mission. And you can see, this video, although all the platforms has already been opened, but you can still see some arms. Some small arms connected to the launch vehicle, because at this moment we still have cables connected to the Long March 2F and to the Shenzhou-14 spaceship. So at this moment, its power supply, the electricity, is come from the launch pad.
So it's not fuel. It's not.
Not fuel. The fueling has already been accomplished several hours before the launch. But at this moment, we still need the electricity from the ground to save the energy of the batteries. You see, the battery inside the launch vehicle can only last for several hours. So we must save this energy. And also, before the unfolding of the solar panels, we also need the storage batteries inside the Shenzhou spaceship to save the energy and raise the reliability. So at this moment, we need to get the power supply from the ground. Only several minutes before the launch, we will transfer the power supply from the ground to the battery inside the launch vehicle.
Okay.
So a rocket like this, 85% of it, what's the percentage of it that would actually be fuel and other things that will be shedded throughout the process? I mean, the actual payload and what the rocket can actually carry and the part that's essential for the space station is very small, right, in terms of the ratio of the rocket.
I don't know the exact ratio.
But the liftoff mass of the whole combination is about nearly 500 tons. More than
8 tons for the
500 tons. Well, only the payload is the payload is the Shenzhou spaceship. It's only 8.1 tons.
So I mean that's a pretty brutal kind of equation, really, isn't it?
That's right. The development of the rocket is it's a fighting against the efficiency.
Right.
That's why you really don't want to launch stuff from Earth if you can help it. You want to put stuff either from the. I'm going into a science fiction territory, but if you can put stuff out of the moon, put stuff out of the asteroids already in space, then assemble stuff in space, then it's a whole different matter.
You want to deliver the most important things to the space. So as Professor Yang Yuan just mentioned, they use everything in the space station to recycle.
Right.
They recycle the water, recycle the action, because you don't want to bring those things to the space to waste those energy.
I suppose that's what pushes the development as well of science and research, to try and make everything more efficient, lighter, smaller.
Exactly. You know that every kilogram of payload, the cost to bring this payload to the station, the cost will be much more expensive than the same amount of gold. So we must save. So just several days before, the media asked me why they don't wash their clothes in outer space. I say that they only use their clothes one time and abandon that, because that washing the clothes will use water. Well, the bottle is much more expensive than the clothes itself. So that is the reason today we don't use the washing machines in outer space.
Oh, so everything that they bring up, it's all just. I mean, it's reusable clothes, right? We're not talking about disposable ones used in 6 months. It's a long time. That's a lot of clothes to bring up if they have to.
Some are disposable.
Part of the resources are reusable. For instance, the water,
Yeah.
the air are reusable. But something like the clothes will not be recycled, and also some other things. And also, that today we use what we call the regenerative environmental control and the life support system. So for this system, we also have some parts, some spare parts for these systems, because some of the parts are easy to be have some failure. So we must have the spare parts to replace them. And for this, we must prepare these kinds of parts in the cargo ships.
So space is obviously very limited, or weight, I guess, is limited as
Actually,
well for what they can carry. But
until today, our water recovery system in the station has already recycled more than 1 ton of water during the Shenzhou-12 and the Shenzhou-13 missions.
so just to interrupt you quickly, Professor Yang, we're on a 15-minute countdown now.
15
Yeah.
minutes.
各号注
So the
意，
ground staff
我
there.
是您号，15分钟准备，东风，东风明白。
And they're just announcing the 15-minute countdown there. It's the ground crew. Professor Jiang, so I
各号
read
注意，我
earlier
是东
that
风，15分钟准备，调度制
I'm
空
not sure
波
if it's the Shenzhou-14 or if it's with the Wentian module that's going, but there'll be gyroscopes. And I think you mentioned this
the
earlier
gyros.
as well. Is this going with the Shenzhou? Or is this because these are 170 kilos?
渭南，
Yeah, those
明白
things are
领导
already up there in the
明白
Tianhe
天
core
津
module. So those are
明白
basically helping the
救援
space
明白
station turn
青
into
山
positive,
明白
turn into positive without
双子
using the rockets.
明白
It's using
明白
conservation of
天
angular
堂
momentum. Those are
明白
heavy spinning disks. In the core module, you can see some bulky sort of round top things,
Right.
6 of them on the. You only need 4, but they have the redundancies. They are on the outside precisely because they're so noisy, and that's part of going into the mental health for 6 months thing. If those are in the inside, you got constant noise coming from
Constant
that. It would be a
buzzing,
whole
right.
different, a whole different
It
game.
would drive people crazy.
Yeah.
So they've already got everything up there. I think there's no more going up.
So the equipment,
gyroscopes, yeah. Do they have all the gyroscopes they need
so
up there?
Presumably the Wentian would also have them, but they're not on our side anymore.
And also this time we're going to have like 2 modules, Wentian and Mengtian, both for scientific research modules. And what are the differences between them?
The Wentian module also have a very important role to back up many of the critical systems of the core module. For instance, there were also
So it's not only for the scientific
yeah,
research.
exactly. So the Wentian module have an independent environmental control and life support system. Also, 3 bedrooms for the astronauts.
Oh, that will be for this, the
Another
Shenzhou
3-1.
15, another 3-1 at the end of the
and also
the
there is
December.
another toilet in the Wentian module. So we will have 2 toilets.
So
in
Shenzhou 15's
yeah.
crew will be
And
temporarily
also,
stay there.
you already discussed. There have a joke. Miss Jiao Yang, you work for that, because what you discussed is called CMG.
Control moment gyroscope.
Exactly.
But in
You are very
your case,
professional.
that was a.
Not China Media Group. So you may notice that just between the small cylindrical compartment and the big cylindrical compartment of the Tianhe module, there are 6 very huge spheres mounted
That's the gyroscopes.
just between them. So that's what you have discussed, the control moment gyroscopes. These are used for the attitude control. The amazing thing is that for this kind of attitude control, you only use electricity. You don't need to use your propellants. So you know that although we also have the attitude control engines on board our Tianhe module, but that only was used in some certain cases. For instance, if you want to change the attitude very rapidly, or when the orbital control engine or the main engines are working, so we need to use the engines. But you should notice that to using engines, we use the valuable propellants. So theoretically speaking, we can have infinite electricity. So we use the control moment gyroscope to control the attitude in most cases. And as you asked, there are also the backup control moment gyroscopes in the Wentian module. So for some critical functions, the Wentian module can increase the reliability of the whole station.
Now we're seeing this, the ground staff is evacuating from the launching pad. That means
They will-
counting
How long to
down as
go?
I'm going is
12 minutes.
The
About
commander
12
in
minutes.
charge of this will count the numbers of persons, so no one should be left.
So basically, before 10 minutes is down, no one except for the 3 astronauts will be evacuated
So
from the
as I
launch.
mentioned, why we opened the third platform in the last sequence, because many of the staff belongs to the Shenzhou spaceship system
still
and
there.
belongs to the astronaut system. Will leave last.
Right.
Giving
And Professor
them the
John,
last
and
minute
Professor
back.
John, aside from this engineering functioning that has been mentioned by Jiuquan, and I believe the Wentian and Montian will have this different role in terms of their scientific research. I believe one will be the home for the bio.
Right.
The
it's
bio experiments.
more towards the bio. The Wentian would be more towards biological.
Space biology.
Yeah.
Space biology.
The other one is more physical. Obviously, biology is.
So you'll be more interested in the physical part, right?
Yeah, but I have old admirations for the biologists. I mean, I have friends who raise bacteria. They have to go check it every 3 hours. They can only sleep for 3 hours.
Oh, they're
at a
going to
stretch.
race the bacteria and 10.
I think it's part of the
Amazing.
thing. Yeah.
So earlier we saw a sign that said for when the rocket will be ignited, and it was down to the second. It was 10:44:07 seconds.
Yeah,
So they are very precise about this.
that's what I call
10
the
minutes.
zero launch window. But today, because we have the optimized mechanism, so it increased to a narrow launch window. So the launch vehicle can adjust its trajectory during the flight to adapt the difference. And the next, I believe, at about 10 minutes, T-minus 10 minutes counting down, we will perform some critical operations, for
各号
instance,
注意，
transfer the
我是
electricity.
宁浩，下面通报点火时间，点火时间为10:44:07，点火时间为10:44:07。
There it is. They're just announcing
That
their
was the final,
precise
their announcement
second.
their announcement for the liftoff time, which will be 10 minutes later.
Professor
Oh,
Zhang
no,
has
less
already
than 10
10
minutes
minutes
later.
44.
10:44.
At 10:44:07
Right.
seconds.
Professor Zhang has mentioned the basic requirement of the launch is to launch the Shenzhou spaceship to the same orbital plane of our station. They must in the same orbital plane. So we don't have other choice but to when the launch site together with the rotation of the Earth passing through this orbital plane. So
So
that is the reason.
So we've got a few more minutes to go until launch, and we'll get to see all the different phases in a minute. But just before we get there, Professor Zhang, can you just talk us through what will happen after the rocket launches? So the different stages of separation, probably not using the right term here, but you understand what I mean, until the spacecraft is able to reach Tiangong.
Well, you can back me up if anything goes. I say this wrong. So it will lift off, and then I think the escape tower goes away at 120 seconds, and then the boosters come off, and then the second stage engine will ignite and push away the first stage engine. So this is the kind of technology used for this particular rocket. For the later on ones, you would separate them first and then ignite the engines. That's why you have those openings on the side of the rocket for flames to go out. And then the second stage engine will burn for something like 300 seconds, and then a bit more with the auxiliary engines. And then at this stage, I think, if I remember correctly, will be the fairing coming off, and then they will be able to talk to ground. The astronauts will be exposed.
What sort of timing are we looking at then? For when they're able to communicate and for the space shuttle to be exposed, for the fairing to be shed?
Several hundred.
Is that something that we can sort of estimate? Several minutes after liftoff, or what sort of
Well,
time
you
scale?
know, that during the whole launch process, we always have the radio connections between the ground stations and the Tianlian data relay satellite to the launch vehicle. But you know that after the separation of the Shenzhou spaceship and the launch vehicle, the second stage, we must measure the orbital parameters to ensure that to judge whether it will be a successful launch. And we've already heard many times the voices between the commander and other ground stations. So the other ground stations will will track the combination of the rocket and the Shenzhou spaceship, and also measure the trajectory.
Okay.
You're now watching the three astronauts. In the cabin from the left to right is Liu Yang and Commander Chen Dong.
And then a very critical step is for the solar panels to unfold, and then they can actually charge up their batteries and stuff to go on for the next stage. Once they're up there, I think the ground tracking, as Professor Yang mentioned, would upload the trajectory information onto the spacecraft, so they can go on chasing the Tiangong station and do their 6.5-hour journey there. I think more recently, the fact that Beidou came online has made it a lot easier for navigation. That's why part of the reason why they can do 6.5 hours short.
各号注意，
Right.
我
So
是0号
until the point that the
5分钟
solar
准备
panel is
各号
open.
注意，5
There's
分钟
5
准备。
minutes.
Five minutes.
5 minutes to go.
It's T
So-
minus 5 minutes and counting.
So until the solar panel is opened, I mean that process could just be, 10 minutes or so? Is that how long it could take?
You know, that's the separation of
It
the rocket and the spaceship is about 584 seconds
Oh,
of
wow.
the liftoff.
Down to the seconds, right.
And after several seconds will be the unfolding of the solar panels.
Is there a particular stage that's considered especially, I suppose, more dangerous than others, more risky?
The most dangerous part will be the rocket flight, especially during the flight of the first stage, because you know that you may heard that there is a saying word called max Q. So max Q usually happened several seconds after liftoff. So at this moment, there are the maximum aerodynamic forces act on the body of the rocket. That will be the most dangerous.
Seeing that the
Three
astronauts have put down their visors.
Yes.
So we're now in the
They're
4
ready.
minutes.
Yeah, they're
Less
ready
than 4 minutes
for
to go.
the liftoff.
I wonder how much they must be feeling right now. I mean, they look the same as they did at the beginning. They look
They have
pretty
been
calm,
practiced
pretty.
they've been
Right.
practiced for quite a long time, so I believe they're pretty calm. And also, well, though they will spend 6 months in a space, every day will have been very carefully planned
Yeah.
by the ground staff and by the controlling center on the ground.
But
So
scheduled based on Beijing time.
Yeah, the schedule is based on Beijing, but every detail of their working schedule has been planned.
Yeah, yeah.
Has already been planned.
And also, it is very interesting that you know the Tianzhou-14 has
各
already
号注
prepared
意
food for them.
我是
Right.
0号，3分钟准备。
All right, just 3 minutes until the launch. Chen Zhong, Liu Yang, and Tai Shuzhou have completed their final checks, and they will stay in space for 6 months as part of the second phase of the mission to complete China's space station by the end of the year.
And this is China's third crewed flight to its space station since 2021. The Shenzhou-14 will be headed for the station's Tianhe core module, and that module was launched in April last year.
And the Long March Carrier rocket is
You can see the blue mark on the payload fairing is the logo of China Manned Space Engineering.
All the docking will be done automatically, right, when the spacecraft gets there, and then the same for the Wentian and the Mengtian that'll be going up later.
The first choice will be automatic, but they practice the redundant sort of remote control from inside the station. So.
In a normal case, of course, we will use the automatic docking.
Because
it's
it's
more
more
reliable.
accurate,
But if something wrong happened to that, we have the manual docking as the
1
backup
分钟准
measure.
备。
It's more reliable. Is it also
各号注意
faster
1分
than
钟
the
准备。
manual docking?
Yeah.
1 minute,
50秒。
50 seconds. This is getting closer. Wow. We're holding breath too.
Apparently, there's a famous story that the Chinese astronaut going up, they monitored the heart rate. Was it Yang Liwei or who? The heart rate doesn't even go up. His,
That's right. That's pretty calm.
Remarkable, yeah.
That's been,
Well trained.
well trained.
At this moment, the power supply has changed, transferred from the ground to the inside batteries.
They're able to speak to each other, right? Through
They can.
there's
They can
comm
do that.
systems in their
Yeah.
helmets, and I'd love to be able to hear what they're saying if they're saying anything right now to each other.
Right.
Even on the
One
back.
minute now.
1 minute countdown.
And you can see the rotational arms will be opened finally and unplug
50秒
the cables.
50秒
Right. Coming up,
The
we'll see
orange
this-
arms.
the rocket would be heading to the China's Tianhe space station.
40秒 40秒
It's the 40-second mark now.
Mhm.
Arms are open.
30秒 30秒
And you can really see how sparsely populated this area is and how important that is.
20秒 20秒
We're now seeing 20 seconds to go, and we're seeing this the commander is giving out the countdown.
10
10,
9
9, 8,
7
7,
6
6,
5
5,
4
4,
3
3,
2
2,
1
1.
点火
liftoff.
起飞
And
起飞
that
70
we've
动时
been
44
expecting
分
for the
1动
entire
秒
morning.
自动
And now we're seeing the launching and liftoff.
power
China's
is
Long-March
there.
1
2F.
动时44分1动秒
With Shenzhou-14
自动动秒
spacecraft. The Tycho nozzle seems very.
酒泉光学跟踪正常。
And now we're seeing is the rockets still leaving the Earth, heading to China space station.
And more announcements from the ground control saying
青
it's
山
normal.
USB 雷达跟踪正常，遥测信号正常。
So the pitch over is already accomplished. It changes the direction from a vertical direction
双程
to
光
the
学雷
east
达跟踪
south.
正常。
Yeah, we're seeing from this the camera view that has been set up on the side of
东
the
风光学
rocket.
USB
which
雷
is
达
living
跟踪
higher
正
and
常
higher.
遥测信号正常
It's a
东风
beautiful,
飞行正
beautiful
常
rocket. And
beautiful day
today's
for it.
weather is terrific.
Yeah. So the next critical step will be the jettisoning of the emergency escape tower.
That could
All
happen
right.
any
About
second, right?
120 seconds.
That little pointy, that small rocket will finish its job
Yeah.
and will be separated from the main rocket.
Honestly, I felt my heart rate go up there.
All Tycho seems very calm, and
Great. This is infrared video.
they're not experiencing too much acceleration at this moment.
So you can see that both the vehicle and the flame is very bright. I believe.
Which part will be the hardest for the old
As I
Tychonus?
mentioned, just before the separation of the boosters, when
Okay.
it is transonic,
Oh.
it is transonic. The flow will be the most complex, and also the aerodynamic forces will be acting on at the maximum level.
So now we're seeing the
Okay.
rockets changing
Soon we will
direction.
see the jettisoning.
Oh,
great.
just happened there.
酒
Oh,
泉
that
逃逸
is-
塔分离。
Yeah.
逃逸塔分离
And the escape tower has been separated
It
from
is
this
already
rocket.
jettisoned. So the next step will be the separation
青山
of
USB
boosters.
雷达跟踪正常，遥测信号正常。
So far, so good.
About
I mean, it's very clear through the infrared image, isn't
at
it?
about 553
双程
minutes,
光学
3
雷
seconds.
达跟
I
踪
think
正
now
常
we're。seeing is,
东风光学 USB 雷达跟踪正常遥测信号正常东风飞行正常
And we're hearing lots of the voices of all the various ground stations saying that the monitoring and everything
the
is
booster is
as
about to
normal.
separate.
酒泉
Okay,
推气
now.
分离。
Booster
后推器
separated.
分离
Wow. so
酒泉
beautiful.
一二
This
级分离
is,
一二级分离
the flame.
And the first stage is already separated.
Now the booster and a first stage rocket are separated.
So they made some changes to the separation process. It used to be just dropping down, falling behind. Now they sort of push them out or just
this is a video mounted on the rear part of the second stage. So we can see that there is one main engine with a thrust of about 80 tons, and also 4 Vernier engines. You can see the nozzle of the small Vernier engines, which can change the direction to control the altitude.
So this is the second stage rocket that we're looking at now.
The fairing.
Payload fairing is also
Payload
separated.
fairing, it's about to separate it.
Okay. So we can see the folded solar panels.
双程抛走零照。
Well, after the second stage rocket is ignited,
Yeah.
that we're now seeing a separation of the fairing.
And that will leave the space shuttle exposed.
And the fairing is what protects the spacecraft, and now this
青
whole
山
spacecraft
USB
is
跟踪正
now
常，
exposed
遥
to
测
the
信号
outside.
正常。
So the second stage will work for more than 400 seconds, and the
双
first.
程光学雷达
So
跟
now
踪
will
正
be
常。
the hardest time for the
No,
astronaut.
it's already not the most.
They have already going through this part.
Yeah, because this moment is already come out of the dense atmosphere.
东风光
So
学
what is it?
USB 雷
What
达
would they
跟
be
踪正
feeling
常，
right
遥
now?
测信号
They
正常，
will
东风飞
experience
行
the
正常。
vibration and the G forces.
Okay.
Okay.
And you know that the thrust is almost the same, but because with the exhausting of the propellants, they will acting more and more of the G load on board on the body, and the maximum G load happen during the separations because at that moment the thrust is big, but the mass is small. And during the flight of the second stage, we will first shut down the main engine, and the 4 Vernier engine will work longer to adjust the trajectory precisely to ensure the accurate orbit of the Shenzhou.
So they've already passed the toughest moments, basically. Of this
It's already
launch, and now
past
it's-
the most tough
Right.
moments because,
just
as I
waiting to get
mentioned,
into orbit.
when it is experiencing the max Q, it will be have the maximum aerodynamic forces. But now it's already almost in the vacuum condition.
Now it's just a matter of how accurate they inject into the orbit. That means how much fuel they spend when chasing the space station.
青山 USB 跟踪正常，遥测信号正常。
The voice is just reported the tracking status of the certain ground stations.
双程光学雷达跟踪正常。
Again, more report backs
太原
of
雷达
everything
跟踪正
being
常，
monitored
遥测
as
信号
normal.
正常。
Yes,
天
it
津
reported that
USB
both
跟踪正常，
optical
遥测信号正
cameras
常。
and the readers tracking very normally.
东风光学 USB 雷达跟踪正常，遥测信号正常，东风飞行正常。
You can see the background is the Earth, very bright.
Right.
It's because it is in daylight time.
And we're seeing the main engine is still working.
Yeah.
And what are we going to see next?
Well, the next, as I mentioned, will be the shutdown of the main engine.
Okay, the main engine will be shut down first.
Yeah.
And then will be the separation of the spacecraft and
After the Vernier engine is also shutted, there are 4 Vernier engines. So after the shutdown of the Vernier engines, we will see the separation.
Right.
They're still
Then we
reading
check out a
those
phase of
booklets
Shenzhou.
there.
Because they are already past the maximum G forces, so they are more relaxed now.
So I mean, it didn't last too long, did it? The
About,
these.
as I mentioned, about
Yeah.
near 10 minutes, 584 seconds.
I know. I mean, the worst part of feeling the G-force, the maximum G-force, that
So
wouldn't have
you
lasted
already
too long
can
for
see
them.
the blue bubble, the Earth, so beautiful.
青山 USB 跟踪正常，遥测信号正常。
So it reported that the telemetry data is normal. We can get the detail of any technical parameter from the telemetry data.
I have no idea. I don't know if you have been checking on the internet because yesterday the China Space Authority has released a new set of the footage that's been filmed by the Shenzhou-14 crew.
Yeah,
They took the pictures and the video.
the
footage.
8K, yeah.
That's the
The
8K
8K video.
high resolution footage.
Oh, main engine is shut
机
down.
关机
Oh, they'll be seeing it for themselves very
Right.
soon. The Shenzhou-14 crew.
So are they using the they take the camera with them, or they use the camera on the space station to take all of those footages?
Both.
Both?
Yeah. Mr. Cai Shizhe is still reading the handbook.
And
I wonder if it's also a way to
it
calm
seems that
any nerves that they may have,
It
right?
seems
Something to
that they're-
distract
they're-
themselves.
So they will
relaxed.
experience the 0G after the shutdown of the Vernier engines. I can still remember last time Miss Liu Yang is so exciting that she reads her pen.
And is that a stage that pen can float on? Can float on?
Yeah. After the shutdown of the
听
Vernier
到
engine.
USB 雷达跟踪正常，遥测信号正常。
I mean, as composed as they may be, they must also be incredibly excited at this point. I mean, this
Yeah.
is, it's a historic moment for them.
And especially for Tsai, I guess.
Right.
That's his first time up. He's
Maiden
been training so
voyage.
long.
But he's holding it together very well.
Yeah.
You know, because they have windows in the re-entry capsule, so after the jettisoning of the payload fairing, they can already begin to enjoy the scene outside the cabin.
太原雷达天津 USB 跟
So
踪
I
信
think
号
that's an
遥测
animation
信号
down
正
at the
常。
bottom right of where the
Right.
rocket is, where the space shuttle is.
Well, on the bottom
And I
right
can
of the
see the
screen,
solar
you can see
panel.
a 3D animation which represents the real status of the
Hao Jiao
vehicle
3号
based on the
8分钟
telemetry data. So you can see that the 4 Vernier engine is still working. It will adjust because the thruster is much smaller than the main engine, so it can adjust the
听到
trajectory
飞
very
船上
precisely.
下人2级油机关机。听到双步完成。
Great.
2级油机关机。船舰分离。
Separation.
All right, the separation is happening.
And a round of
As you can hear,
applause.
the applause from the controlling room, and the spacecraft and the rocket has been separated.
They are already
It's
enjoying the
playing-
0G.
It's
Look at the
playing with
pen.
the fans now.
天津上行停发。
Oh, yeah.
Now let's see, they're
天
playing
津
with
上
their
行停
pen.
发。
Every time it's the new guy.
Mr. Cai Shizhe is so excited.
天路发现目标。
Every time it's a new guy.
建立。天路发现目标。
Well, Mr. Tsai,
长江
enjoy
3
your
号
remaining
双步完
voyage
成。
to the
长江
space.
3号双步完成。
Thank God for the new guy, others we wouldn't be seeing that, would we?
So the other 2 veterans is not so excited.
Right.
Oh, there's that pen.
So the pen is our 0G indicator.
Maybe that's a tradition as well.
北京入
Yeah.
轨指令链发出。
That's a spontaneous one.
So, Professor Yang, can we say this now Shenzhou-14 has entered this predetermined orbits
It's
now?
already into the orbit, but still needs to get the orbital parameters by the telemetry data and also from the measurement from the ground stacking tracking data. And we will combine all these data and analysis the exact orbit, and only with it's accurate enough, we can say that it is a successful launch.
When will they be able to leave their seats and move about? Would that be once
After
they-
the unfolding of the solar panels.
Okay.
And then they can open the hatch between the 2 modules and go into the orbital module. And also they can take off their
天路
IBS
1号
spacesuit.
04型跟踪正常。
So now they're already on this orbit where the space station is located.
It's in the same orbital plane, but in a different altitude.
Different
as
altitude.
As Professor Zhang has mentioned, actually speaking, their orbit, this initial orbit is lower than the station. Because according to the features of orbital dynamics, the lower it is, the faster it is rotating the Earth. So it is the chasing vehicle, chasing the space station.
So how long would this take to chase after the
I will declare
core
about
module?
6.5 hours.
6.5 hours.
北京帆板展开，指令发出。
So the next
Right,
critical
this
step will be the
the
unfolding
solar
of the
panel has opened. And we hear just the final announcement that the solar panel is opened, and we hear the applause at the launch center.
And that marks the successful launch, right?
北京明白。
The solar panels.
Well, that basically
太阳帆板展开。
That's a great image.
You can see this.
now we can basically say it's a successful launch.
It's
太阳帆板
Right.
驱动正常。
And now it's just
now
waiting
it's
for
just
the
a-
final official announcement.
So this is the cruising stage, is it?
As I mentioned, we should check the accuracy of the orbital parameters and then announce the success and see the big red screen.
And we should be able to hear from the astronauts themselves pretty soon, right? They should be coming onto the comms and communicating with the ground staff.
中继天线展开正常。
Oh, great. Also, the unfolding of the data relay antenna.
Yeah, so they will be able to say something now.
And we just heard a voice that they have already established the communication link with the Tianlian data relay satellite.
神舟14号，我是北京。
That means we can
That's
communicate with the
Beijing's
three
ground
astronauts.
staff just communicating just now.
通报座舱大气环境及身体状况。
We're about to hear
身体好的。
the report.
And that's astronaut Liu Yang reporting back that she's in good condition.
好的。神舟14号报告，飞船座舱大气
长江3号跟踪正常，遥测信号正常。
完毕。
That's fantastic. That's the voices of the astronauts there saying that they are all well.
In good condition. It's a good things to hear.
That's actually the first time that we've heard from them since heard their voices.
Right.
Since before they were before the
天路
launch.
1号领域
Yeah.
飞行跟踪正常，前反向数据
And if you're
收发正常
watching our special coverage for,
神舟
if
14
you've
号，
been
我是北
following
京。
our special coverage,
地面
you
确
really
认
hear about
侧
those
舱环境正
terms
常
in Chinese
可以
terms
打开面窗。
often, like 的感觉良好. It
I
means it
hear
feels
that.
good.
I feel
we feel
good.
good. I feel
This
good.
the ground commander asked them they can open their helmet now. It's already safe enough.
So opening the visors.
Yeah,
There we go.
it will be more comfortable.
And they're
So of course
Open their
the
face
visors
masks.
were
Yeah.
important
太阳
to
帆
keep
板
down
发
because
电
of
正常。
the pressure, right?
Right. If they need the pressure, you need to keep it on your head as well. Yeah.
There are pipes between their IVA spacesuit and the cabin, and it can not only provide the oxygen and also provide the ventilation and cooling. So the IVA spacesuit, that is the reason why it is much more simpler than the EVA spacesuit.
What sort of temperature would it be inside the capsule right now?
About 25 degrees, very comfortable.
That's pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
If not, a bit hot for them, though.
And also we hear
Considering what they're wearing.
the solar panel is working
各号
well
注意
right now.
我是北京。
That means the energy
根据
supply
北京
is
实时轨道
good.
与遥测数
for
据
the
监视判
spacecraft.
断，神舟14号飞船已进入近地点高度200公里，远地点高度360公里，倾角41.35度，周期约1小时30分钟的预定轨道，太阳帆板展开，飞船工况正常，航天员状态良好，后续工作按照正常飞控计划实施。
So there it is, the ground staff saying that the Shenzhou-14 has entered the planned orbit, the track.
Professor Yang, want to explain a little bit more about their flight condition that has just been reported by the control room?
Well, the ground commander has already announced its orbital parameters.
Yes, that's
the
right.
perigee is about 200 kilometers, and the apogee is about 360 kilometers. As I mentioned, it's slower than our Tiangong space station, so it rotates faster. And the inclination means the angle between the orbital plane and the equator. It's 41.35 degrees. So that's the current parameter of our Tiangong space station. They are already in the same orbital plane. So because it is lower and it will chase the station one cycle by one cycle, become closer and closer, and finally dock to the nadir docking port of the station.
我是北京，东风请讲。
下面请酒泉卫星发射中心主任、发射场区指挥部周立鹏指挥长宣布发射结果。
All right, the final announcement is coming.
北京明白，各号注
We
意
will
收
see
听。
the big red screen soon.
Let's check it out.
各位领导、专家、
Dear
同志们
leaders,，dear experts,
根据北京
fellow
航天飞行
comrades,
控制中心通报
according，to the observation of Beijing Aerospace
遥
Center,
14火箭已将
the
神舟
Long
14号
March
载人
2F
飞船准确送入
Y-14
预定
rocket
轨道
has
帆板
sent
展
the
开
Shenzhou-14 spacecraft into the designated orbit. The solar panel has been deployed and the spacecraft is in good shape. The launch mission was a great success.
Look at that big red screen.
That must be a proud moment for everybody there, and a big relief.
Yeah.
That's right.
It keeps mentioning the screen. That's a tradition. It has to be this.
So they've now been.
Oh, that's a big relief for all of us ground controllers.
So the next step will be the automatic rendezvous performed by our Shenzhou spaceship. You know that during the early stage